In this video, we're going to be repairing the Sony DCR-IP5 Micro MV camcorder. And yes, this is the smallest tape-based transport on any consumer camcorder that was ever made, pretty much. Now, the problem with this one was, if you heard from the original video, which is the first video I put where I actually demonstrated it and showed if it worked or not, it was making clicking sounds on high speed rewind and forward. And I found the problem, of course. So I had to, of course, take the carriage assembly off, which is sitting right there. You do have to take the top plate off. Then you can access where the pendulum and everything is. And then I was able to remove the reel tables. And thankfully on this one, there's usually on the MiniDVs, there's a little clip that you got to push out as you lift up to get it past that notch right there. These here just literally sit right in there, so you can just kind of plop them out, and then here you just kind of get this tension pad away from around, and then you can plop it out, or you can just remove it completely. But make sure you mark it, if you remove it, of course, where it's at. Now here we're going to what the issue is, and this is what the issue is. And unfortunately, it's also common on MiniDV and even on some high-8 camcorder. You can barely see it there. There's a crack right there where it's split all the way, and you can kind of see the stretch. It's hard to see. And let me see if I can get, I'm trying to get better shot at it, but it's hard to see it though. But there's a split right there, and that's what causes the ticking and, of course, the clicking. And I'm trying to get a better shot at it, but you can probably see it somewhat there. But it's this right here, and you can also see how it's a little bit more space apart compared to the spacing next to it and stuff like that. And that's what causes your clicking, because as the pendulum gear here tries to turn that, it hits that spot because the teeth are not spaced equally compared to the other ones and stuff. It rubs against it, and that's what causes the ticking and stuff. And this one also has a crack too, which you can barely see, but it's enough where you go rewind and forward, you will hear it. So that's what was causing the ticking and clicking sound. And this here is your actually supply reel, and this here is your take-up reel and stuff like that. And when you do put new ones in, which I'm taking one from a scrap camcorder, I'm going to replace both of them. Thankfully, those are good, and we're going to put it right back in there. You do have to readjust your pack tension. You want to mark it to where it's at right now, but every time you place one of these with a different one, it's going to be slightly different. And you want to make sure that the tension, you're not putting too much tension where the tape is pretty much putting excessive wear on the heads. And you don't want to put too little tension where you're spilling tape and stuff. So you're going to have to probably go back and forth a little bit till you get it right. Now, they did actually make a tape tension meter that would have probably been available for these, which you're not going to find ever. But either way it goes, there was something where you can adjust it accurately, but you could do it by trial and error too. You can listen to how the heads sound as it's playing back, and then you can get to where it spills tape a little bit and then adjust it right to the point where it's not. Typically that's where you want to be around, where it's not putting excessive head wear, but you're not spilling tape. So you're gonna have to probably take this transport out a couple of times or figure out a way to get the door off to where you can adjust it. And adjustment is right here at that screw there, and you could just adjust it a little bit this way or this way to give you where you got enough or the little back tension to where you get it right. That's kind of a tedious process in itself, but I figure I'll go and give you a look inside the transport here, and you can see the head drum there. There's your capstan motor. Your pinch roll, shockingly, the thing that typically cracks on most MiniDV camcorders, which is this locking right here, is not cracked at all. I mean, I can push up on it, down on it, and it doesn't move. Even with a little bit of force, it doesn't come out. It's actually nicely secure, and I see no cracks there. So that's a good thing there. So what I'm going to go and do is take this apart to the sub chassis a little. I'm going to do that off camera because it is a tedious process. At least get the mold gear clean while I'm at it, since I got it apart already. Put it back together, retime it, then I'll put the carriage assembly back on, and we'll see if it works. I'm also going to show you another problem I found, and I will have to change the door assembly, unfortunately, because the matter of fact, I got it right here, so why not just show you? But right here, and it's hard to see it, But this thing had an intermittent problem where, you know, if you open it close, sometimes it wouldn't power on correctly. But there is a crease in there, and that crease is actually breaking connection pretty much on and stuff. Thankfully, I did find another door assembly, so I am going to put the newer door assembly on there. And once I get everything back together, hopefully I would have resolved all the issues with this camcorder. It's a shame too, because this is actually nicer condition than the one I'm going to put in, at least as far as the lettering and stuff. But the other one, the cable is actually perfect. So that's the one that's going to go back on, and essentially once I get this transport, of course, fully reassembled. So here's what the transport looks like, somewhat halfway back together. I do have both the supply and take up reel back installed and stuff like that. I also went ahead and did the mode switches I said I was going to do off camera. Made sure everything was timed properly, so I will put, like, you know, typically about 4.5 volts at about an amp, and I'll just cycle the transport back and forth to make sure it loads and unloads properly and nothing's sticking. Essentially everything does look correct, and I did double check the timing and stuff, so hopefully it'll be good. Next will be, of course, to get the carriage assembly apart, and you can see these right back here where you gotta notch this and this slide assembly right back to those back posts. And then once you do that, this part here, which is actually down now, but it'll be up like that, and then you just essentially push this over there, make sure it's on the slide rails correctly and stuff, and then you can get your carriage assembly back on there. So I'm gonna go and do that, and I'll be right back once I'm done. As you can see, went ahead and fully reassembled and got the carriage assembly back together. So this is what it would look like in the loaded position. And I figure I'll go and do a good look at this mechanism, because not anyone that I know has actually done, you know, video of the mechanism on one of these Micro MV camcorders. But I give you a close-up shot of what it looks like. See the head drum there, and you can see how it looks. We'll even go and look at the sides and stuff while I have it out. Might as well take advantage. Okay, and you can see back there. And we'll even go and look underneath the transport itself, and you can see the stator assembly for the actual head drum right there, which spins at incredibly high speed. That's why it has this plastic. Which, let me go and see. You can see ball bearings there. Those ball bearings are there are actually used to balance the head, because it's spinning at such a high RPM that, you know, you don't want no vibration and stuff. So they put those ball bearings in slot where it needs to be balanced, so that way it's nice and stable, no vibration. Now here's where your capstan motor is and so forth. There you go. There's an under view of it. Then here's the top view again. So I'm gonna go and get it all the way back together, and I'll be back once I'm done. Figure I'll go and show you the main board as well, because like I said, no one's actually really done a teardown of one of these Micro MV camcorders. And you can see there, very interesting design actually. This really has hybrid, where it's, you know, multi-layer board, but also a flexible PCB. And yeah, that's in one of the layers of the board. It's not on a connector. It's same thing with this back flex right here. It's actually in one of the layers of the board. Very interesting design, whoever came up with this. You can see it for your image processors and everything. Yep, and then here's where your DC to DC inverters will be right here. And here's where, of course, hooks up for your servo controls and so forth for the capstan and head motors, and then your head preamplifier. But there you go. I'm not going to take this off because I don't want to wreck this. I am trying to get it back together in one piece. But there's a look at the main board on this Micro MV camcorder. So here's the tape transport fully reassembled, and you can see this is pretty nicely designed. I mean, the way everything folds over and how they get everything in such a compact space, and you would think this would be incredibly one of the worst camcorders to work on. And to be honest with you, this is much easier than some MiniDV camcorders that Sony made to reassemble and stuff, because it's pretty straightforward. Actually, I'm quite impressed with the design on this. But Either way it goes, we'll go and look at the CCD and viewfinder or something before I get it back into the camera. And here you can see the LCD viewfinder right back here. There's the controller. And then here's the lens assembly with the CCD, of course, being sandwiched behind the lens assembly right there. And you can see how everything's just nicely folded over and so forth. So I'm gonna go and get this back together into the camera. And here's the mic, of course, for the stereo mic. And yes, it does have dampener under it too. So it dampens most of the vibration getting to the microphones. Either way, get that back into the camcorder and I'll be back once I'm done. Some of you might remember that if you watched the last video, I did testing this Sony DCR-IP5 Micro MV camcorder, and it had issues. And the issues was mainly in high-speed rewind and forward. It would do clicking sounds, but it wouldn't do it in regular playback or slow scan and so forth, but it did in the high-speed mode. I was able to resolve that issue. I also was able to, resolve the door issue, which I ended up having replaced the whole door assembly too as well, because every once in a while it would get dodgy where you wouldn't be able to power it on and so forth, or power off. And there's a cable that goes in between this and the door assembly that became dodgy, so I ended up replacing it. And it also happened from the same guy. He had a mangled transport where someone tried to force eject the tape, and even though the carriage and all that was mangled, I was able to salvage actually the take up and supply reel and a couple other gears out of that transport to make this transport fully operational. So it has a fully rebuilt transport now. I also went ahead and cleaned the mode switch and so forth, so everything's good now on this camcorder. And not only that too, because I was able to repair it, I also went ahead and brought an aftermarket battery right here, which you can see there. There's the model number, and it's made by KA Star. And it works with this infilithium system. It doesn't complain about it. And so far, I actually went ahead and put about an hour and a half on it, and it's been working great so far. So good battery, actually. And here's the battery for those that want to see what it looks like on the side of the camcorder right there. But you can see it's now running off the battery versus DC cable. Now, just to give you a size for those that are not aware of how smart this is, because it's Micro MV, not MiniDV. This is a typical tape. That's how small that tape is. This here is a MiniDV tape. And you can see the size comparison. Very major difference. Now, we'll also go one step further here. And I'll take kind of a similar style Sony camcorder for a MiniDV. And this is their PC series pretty much. And we'll put it there. And you can see just how much smaller it is compared to the MiniDV. And we'll go put it back there. And you can see the size comparison. That's very small compared to the Sony PC series, which is actually pretty small, compared to most of the MiniDV camcorders during its time and stuff like that. And you can see the size scale. This thing's teeny. So let's go and pull that away. And then we'll go and show you some operation now after the repairs, of course. I did add, like I said, we built the transport. I also replaced the whole entire door assembly because the ribbon cable that goes in between here to the actual other side of the frame right here became dodgy right at the point where it flexes in and out. So I ended up replacing the whole entire door assembly as well. But either way it goes, I'll go and show you operation now. And we'll go to fast rewind right off the bat. And that's the way it should sound. Now we'll go to stop. Alright, we'll go fast forward, of course. And that's the way it should sound compared to how it was before. We'll go right into playback. Alright. And there you go. And yes, there is audio too. We'll go, of course, the opposite direction, get to the menu. Alright, and then we'll go down. And you can hear the audio. So we'll turn it back down. Alright, and then we'll go ahead here. We'll exit out of that. And then we'll go to fast scan. I mean, not fast scan. And I got the mic next to the actual camcorder so you can hear, you know, the operation, and you can hear it's dead silent on all modes now. It's no longer making that, you know, clicking sound like it was before. Alright, and then we'll go ahead here. Yep, it's already in play mode. And then we'll go ahead and show you, of course, back to, you know, the fast forward. That's where the trouble was before. And you could hear much, much better. Alright, we'll go to rewind. Okay. We'll go to playback. And yep, much, much better now. It's been fully rebuilt, so it is fully operational now. Alright, and then another thing too I want to point out, let me see if I can grab the tape here. I will show you a feature. We'll go to camera mode first. I got this in save mode. This is something you should do if you ever send your tapes out to be transferred there. And you can see there how it's flashing, of course, to eject the tape symbol. Of course, the CCD works there too. We'll take the lens cap off. And you can see it's working there. And that's because these tapes have, of course, a tab. And that's pretty much any VHS-C, high 8, even, of course, your regular VHS, and, of course, MiniDV and Micro MV there. There's a tab here, and you always want to have it in the save position. So usually it'll tell you, like, what's saved, what's not. Let's see if this one it does. But you always want to have it where it's in the save position, so that when you send it out, of course, you know, the person transferring doesn't accidentally record over your memories and stuff. Very important that before you send out your tapes to do transfer and stuff like that, to make sure that you go ahead and read the directions on the tape itself and look it up and make sure it's in the save position, so that way the person doing the transfer doesn't accidentally record over it, because once they record over it, there's no getting it back, of course. Now, the feature I actually want to show you is if you go back into playback there, you can see how it has the info for the date stamp and so forth. And this has what you call RFID technology, where MiniDVs, they had contacts in back of the tape there, that when you put it into the mechanism, it hits those contacts, and then from there it reads the chip that's on the tape here. This actually has RFID, and when you put the tape in, it gets the power from the RF signal that's inside the camera, which powers up the chip, and then it's able to read the chip using RFID technology on there and stuff. It's a very small chip that's inside there. Pretty unique, especially considering the time that this thing came out and stuff like that. But either way it goes, this concludes the video for the Sony DCR-IP5 Micro MV camcorder.